You may or may not know that at the weekends I teach typically Texas style barbecue to groups of people at classes, at barbecue shops and destinations around the UK. And sometimes I'm cooking on a 250 gallon size pit, and I don't always fill that pit up for the size of class that we have. So there's often room to do little trials and tests and things like that. And whilst I was shopping for a class a couple of weeks ago, I was in Tesco, which is a supermarket here in the UK, and I found a really cheap boneless pork loin. So here it is. It was £5.50 per kilogram with a club card, a total of £10.40 for this 1.5 kilogram piece, which is pretty good. And what I did was brine it and smoked it on the offset smoker. So it was really good and people at the class really enjoyed it. But for me, it could have done with a little bit more fat render. So in this video, I'm going to redo that, but I'm going to cook it on the chud box for that direct heat, try and render this fat cap, and I think it will be delicious. So we need to get this into a brine, and I've found the easiest way to work out how much brine liquid I need is to take this convenient vacuum seal package, pop it in. If my camera was over the sink, I wouldn't be doing this. And I just want to go above the level of the pork itself. That should be about right. And we can take this out, and now we know exactly how much water we need to brine this thing. So there's some little markings on the side and on this side that let me know that this is about 3 litres of water, or 3,000 grams roughly. And I'm going for a 6% salinity on this. So I need to work out what 6% of 3,000 grams is. That will tell me how much salt I need to put into this to make a 6% salt brine. So 3,000 grams-ish. 6% of 3,000 is 180. So I'm looking for 180 grams of salt. And when you're brining, just go for the cheapest salt when you're just going to be dissolving it anyway. That'll do. Mix this round, let that dissolve a little bit, get this open. And I did something kind of similar to this a while ago. It was a bone-in pork chop inspired by a bone-in pork chop from Kreitz Market in Lockhart, Texas. So our salt is dissolved. Take our super cheap pork loin, get it into our brine, and that is pretty much it. This can go into the fridge overnight. I'll pop a lid on it. We'll come back in about 24 hours and get this on a direct heat pit. This can go into the fridge. So the pork loin has been brining overnight. Before we take it out, we're gonna make up a little rub, something super simple and not too salty. So I'm just gonna take an old shaker bottle and I'm just gonna eyeball about 2 parts black pepper. That's annoying. Maybe just under half a part cayenne and about half a part salt, and that's Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. We don't want this to be too salty because obviously this has been in a brine, but I'm happy with a little bit of extra saltiness on the outside, especially where that rendered fat's gonna be. Yeah, that should be a pretty basic rub for this pork loin. Just over 24 hours later, this pork loin is brined. And as expected, it feels a lot firmer and a lot heavier than it did when it went in. And this brine is going to make sure that it stays nice and juicy and super flavorful all the way through, which I think is always good for lean pork like this. Black pepper heavy rub going on. Get the edges. That is looking really good to me. We'll go outside and get the direct heat chud box fired up. This charcoal is about 70% of the way burnt, so we're going to dump it into the chud box. Pork loin going on for now onto the left side of the chud box, because we're going to start this cook off with a bit of indirect heat cooking. So we only want to take this pork loin to about 145 internal temperature, and that's not going to take very long over direct heat. And I want to allow some time for some good color and, more importantly, some good charcoal and smoke flavor to get into this pork loin before it's time to take it off. So we're going to go pretty low indirect with just a little bit of wood for a little bit of flavor for a little bit, maybe an hour or so. We'll keep an eye on the temperature of the pork loin. And although we brine this pork loin, the final internal temperature is really important for me to make sure that we got a nice, juicy, perfectly cooked piece of meat. And I'm going to do that by using my Chef's Temp Pro Temp Plus. This is going to be a wireless leave-in thermometer, and it's going to help me perfectly monitor the internal temp of this throughout the entire cook, so I don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to stick it in right into the middle, and I'm going to monitor from my phone app how this piece of pork is getting on, and I'm going to set it to alert me when it gets around 140. But by that point, we'll be cooking over some direct heat, so I'll be monitoring it pretty frequently anyway. But for now, we'll shut the chud box down, open this up, and get a little bit of indirect heat smoke on it. And just a very quick note to say that the good people at Chef's Temp are giving 25% off site-wide on their website to everyone using the code on screen, and UK viewers can get free shipping. So thanks very much, Chef's Temp. If you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that a lot of the time I'm eyeballing stuff when I'm making sauces, when I'm making mop sauces, that kind of thing. So a lot of the time things don't come with a recipe, which is good because I think it encourages you to taste and adjust. But a friend of mine suggested that it would be useful, at least for him and probably others, to start adding a rough recipe. So what I'm going to do is still absolutely eyeball it because that's how I like to work, but I'm going to weigh everything out. And I'm going to document how much I put in of each thing, and then I'm going to put the grammage for what I use into the description of this video. So I'm still going to get to eyeball it, I'll taste and adjust, but I'll be measuring exactly how much I put in using these scales. And if you really want to, you can go and follow that recipe and make it for yourself. And I'll be doing this going forward. So mop sauce, we're starting off with some butter, some apple cider vinegar, some white vinegar, some mustard powder, some onion salt, some of my favorite hot sauce, Texas Pete's, and that rub that we made up earlier, heavy on the pepper, a little bit of cayenne, some garlic, a little bit of salt. So we'll bring this up to a low boil. So this pork loin has been on indirect heat on the chub box for about an hour or so. It's hopefully picked up some nice indirect heat smoke flavor. And now we're gonna go direct over the charcoal. So bring these coals over into the middle, get that true direct heat cooking going on. The juices are going to drop down, create some smoke, some steam, and that's going to give us that unique direct heat flavor. And once we get that mop on the meat, which is full of butter, that's going to drip down. That fat's going to burn up, steam up, and give us even more flavor. So cook direct for the next little bit. 15 minutes or so later, with this chud box running around 275 Fahrenheit-ish, I'm going to go in with my first mop, really because I just want to get the flavors on there. And I love a mop sauce. You can see that smoke and steam coming up. That's what we want. It smells like direct heat. Keep doing that every 15 minutes or so. So pretty much 2.5 hours on the dot after this went on, an hour worth of smoke, an hour and a half worth of direct heat. My chef's temp, Pro Temp Plus, has told me that it's at 145 internal. I spot checked that in a few places with my instant read thermometer, and we are good to go. Let's take it inside and let it rest. That is looking absolutely stunning. It smells incredibly good. Pro Temp Plus has done its job, and we'll let this hang out here for a few minutes. So we've got the string on, so just need to be careful of that. Now that is a juicy pork loin. A little bit of a smoke ring going on around the edge there. But yeah, look at that. Literally dripping with juice. That brine definitely has done its job. I could not be happier with how juicy that's come out. Let's give it a taste. That tastes like direct heat mopped barbecue. I'm gonna have to go for this end barky bit. Honestly. Tastes like a pork steak. So incredibly good. That little bit of cayenne is coming through, not too much. Perfectly seasoned. That overnight wet brine just doesn't fail, every time. And nice little crust on there, nice little direct heat style crust. Not barky or anything like that. And this was such a short cook because we were looking for an internal temperature rather than pull apart tenderness. So it wasn't on there for that long. The rub didn't get a real good chance to adhere before we started mopping it. Can probably take this string off now. And as I said at the beginning, what I didn't love about the offset version of this was that the fat cap on top wasn't as rendered as I'd like. This is just like the kind of rendered fat you get on a pork belly. It's just falling apart. Absolutely delicious and a pleasure to eat. Next time I do a pop-up, I might seriously consider adding this to the menu. It's much cheaper, probably easier to cook than pork belly. Direct heat if you can. Stick a couple of slices of that on a tray. A little dip in the barbecue sauce if you want to. Oh, just perfect. I really wish I had some bread or some tortillas, some pickles, some onions. This would make a great little foldy. It's just so juicy. Cannot beat the direct heat. That mop sauce, I love a buttery, vinegary mop sauce. It just balances everything out. When you've just got salty meat, maybe with a little bit of sweet, adding in that vinegary hit is never a bad move. If I was served this in a restaurant, I'd be delighted. And I'd go back and order it again next time I was there. And it's nice, it has that kind of old school rustic barbecue vibe about it. It's not particularly pretty, it's pretty simple, it's cheap, but it tastes like barbecue and it's really, really good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend giving this one a go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, do all those things. It really, really helps me out. And go ahead and let me know if you cook this in the future. I'll see you in a couple of weeks for another video.